you may lose your job, but if you know how to use AI, there are new jobs. So 100% sort of ghost jobs exist. Everyone knows about it. One of our club members applied to 400 jobs, went to 7 rounds of interviews. In the last round, they didn't reject him. They said the job is no more there. But अगर आप work culture और local context नहीं समझोगे, most likely क्या होगा जो आपका interview process will not go well because they'll be like यार cultural fit नहीं है. If I as a brown person can work in their parliament, I am certain that there are opportunities in this country for anyone who's coming from abroad. I think what sets the United Kingdom apart from any other place, the inclusivity and diversity in London and the UK, is exceptional.
Hello and welcome to Social Untold, to part 2 of our podcast with UKJI with Vardaan. Welcome again, Vardaan. आज हम बात करना चाहते हैं आपसे एक्सपर्ट रोल्स के बारे में कि एक्सपर्ट रोल्स जो लोग उनमें इंटरेस्टेड हैं, जो रीलोकेशन में इंटरेस्टेड हैं, जो ऑलरेडी एक हायर लेवल पे एक पोजीशन पे जॉब कर रहे हैं, वो रीलोकेट करना चाहते हैं या अपनी जॉब को चेंज करना चाहते हैं या फॉर एनी रीज़न दे आर लुकिंग फॉर अ न्यू रोल within their industry in an expert role. How do they go about it? Now, first question to you, what is your experience with it? Do you deal with those groups of people as well?
We've had brilliant experience with that. I think personally, if you ask me, the group which is senior with good technical skills, a good professional personality, can foresee a very good future in the UK. I'll give you some examples. We've been working with a lot of people, a lot of clients from India who are engineers, really brilliant engineers, really good skill set, vast number of years, 5, 7, 8 years of work experience, and they're looking for roles in the UK. Now, of course, there is contextual differences between India में कैसे करते हैं, UK में कैसे करते हैं. What we do is we bring them up to speed with the contextual differences, map up a UK CV fast, and put them out in the market. Tech में specifically, tech, green skills, project related skills, data, AI. These are industries where we're seeing a really good traction.
Gotcha.
To give you an example, one of my clients, she is brilliant. She's worked for 8 years in tech. She's a Java backend developer, senior role, very sweet girl. And she basically was like, well, I want to relocate to the UK, and so let's get this going. She looked into the process, CV banaya, cover letter, we got everything done, started applying.
अच्छा.
मैंने उसको बोला था कि देखो यार आप ना 2% कन्वर्जन लेके चलो, बिकॉज रिलेटिवली व्हेन यू आर अप्लाइंग फ्रॉम द आउटसाइड ऑफ द यूके कन्वर्जन आर लो.
ठीक.
2% लेके चलो, मार्केट ऐसा है, बाहर से भी अप्लाई कर रहे हो, दैट्स अ ऑप्टिमिस्टिक नंबर. सी लाइक ठीक है, अप्लाई किया. विद इन 2 months ऑफ अप्लाइंग, Amazon, Revolut, Barclays, Binance,
wow.
Meta,
Wow.
interviews, इंडिया से बैठे बैठे.
Wow.
एंड आई वाज लाइक ये क्या हो रहा है, मेरे पास इतनी स्टोरी डालने के लिए कंटेंट नहीं हुआ है, मैं रोज डाल रहा हूँ वही सेम बंदी की स्टोरी बिकॉज शी इज जस्ट डूइंग सो गुड. एंड दैट्स जस्ट वन एग्जांपल. देयर सो मेनी अदर really good examples. What people struggle with is उसके बाद इंटरव्यू कैसे करना है और टेक्निकल कैसे करना है. बट इफ यू आस्क मी कि ओपननेस है यूके में, 100% है. इफ यू हैव द स्किल, इफ यू हैव द वर्क एक्सपीरियंस, इफ यू गॉट द पर्सनालिटी टू रियली गेट थिंग्स गोइंग, 100% देयर इज अ फ्यूचर. आई विल be quite confident about that.
Acha, now working culture, how different is it for people coming from India, Pakistan, जहाँ से भी आ रहे हैं, दूसरे मुल्कों से जो आते हैं, उनको यूके में वर्किंग कल्चर कितना अलग दिखता है? आई एम श्योर कॉर्पोरेट में is not so much, but again, what are the key things they should be, I mean, the worries, the things for relocation, किन चीज़ों को उनको सोचना चाहिए, किन चीज़ों का ख्याल रखना चाहिए, ऐसी कंसल्टेंसी या एडवाइस भी आप उनको देते हैं?
Absolutely. So work culture is critical when it comes to cracking interviews. तो अगर आप इंडिया से कर रहे हो, आपका सीवी तो हमने अच्छा बना दिया, हमने सब कुछ कर दिया, एंड यू आर एबल टू गेट टू द इंटरव्यू. बट अगर आप वर्क कल्चर और लोकल कंटेक्स्ट नहीं समझोगे, मोस्ट लाइकली क्या होगा जो आपका इंटरव्यू प्रोसेस विल नॉट गो वेल बिकॉज दे विल बी लाइक यार कल्चरल फिट नहीं है. And most people who are like scoring as a fancy interviews, they are getting rejected at the interview stage because cultural fit नहीं होता. Now there are a lot of different things like culturally, जैसे हमने previous podcast में बात की, simple thing like how are you, हम बोलते हैं yes I'm fine, let's talk technicals. That's so something as an engineer, potentially know a lot of engineer trained in India, we're taught technical skills are paramount. And so in an interview you go like, हाँ मैं technically मैं brilliant हूँ, Java मुझे आता है, Python मैं करता हूँ, let's go do it, right? So that's a contextual difference. वहाँ पे UK में they sort of value a bit more of a personality. So आप जाओ technical में, that's important. But you also top it up with a nice answer. Show me some personality. Show me a bit of your hobby. Give me a bit more of you as a person and not you as a professional. वो आएगा, but वो बाद में आएगा. So culturally, there is that little difference, I would say.
तो आपको ऐसा नहीं लगता, आई मीन दिस इज माय पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस, के टेक्निकल जॉब्स एज यू क्लासिफाइड देम इज कि आईटी रोल्स, इंजीनियरिंग, ये टेक्निकल रोल्स जो है इसमें पर्सनालिटी को कम देखा जाता है, बल्कि और एचआर और मार्केटिंग वाले रोल्स जितने हैं, कस्टमर फोर्सिंग रोल्स या इस तरह के, उसमें ज़्यादा देखा जाता है. Isn't that true? I mean, to me, that's how I feel. Not so much of your personality matters, but your work ethic matters the most. So how different is that?
100%. I think हम लोग थोड़ी general बात कर रहे हैं, which is also important. I think it's quite specific to the case. However, what you're saying is absolutely right? So, personality कितना matter करता है? Definitely, if you're into sales, your personality matters more than how much you know Excel, right? क्योंकि को sell करना है, तो you need to have that soft skill. So when I compare it from back my career back in like different countries and then compare it to the UK, I think a lot of it is even if you're technically brilliant, but अगर आपकी soft skill नहीं है ना, तो you will get past the first round, second round, कहीं ना कहीं जाके आप reject होगे. So having that personality is important. Yes, your work ethic and all of that matters, but that would only matter once the interviewer likes you enough to ask you that question. Or you go to the second, third stage where they ask you these questions, right? First, at the very onset of your interview, you need to make sure that you get off on a right note. जैसे हमने पहले podcast में बात की, right? How you have gone to hike, this and that. Give me that personality. I think the personality ना एक ऐसा बायस है, लोग बोलते हैं हमें फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, हम तो भाई मेरिट पे करते हैं इंटरव्यू, बट द फैक्ट इज अगर आपको कोई बंदा अच्छा लगता है तो आपको अच्छा लगता है यार. सो एज समवन who's going for an interview, it's your responsibility to make sure you're aware of the right biases and you seed the right biases into the interviewer's head when you're interviewing. So that personality game is quite important. I cannot emphasize more on that, honestly.
Super. So एक चीज़ मैं भूल गया आपसे पूछना, जो मुझे शायद थोड़ा पहले आपसे पूछनी चाहिए थी. What is the difference between a graduate CV and an expert CV? What are the key differences?
The key difference in a graduate CV, and I think we
वो हम काफ़ी डिटेल में डिस्कस कर चुके हैं जी.
In a graduate CV, we add something called as a fresher friendly CV section. तो graduate में आपके पास naturally work experience नहीं है, तो आप add करोगे things like projects, things like certification, ongoing learning, things like your volunteering experience, ऐसे चीज़ें आप add करोगे. In a sort of more senior CV, the work experience is the heart of the CV. Because उधर आपको fresher friendly CV section add करने की जरूरत नहीं, आपका work experience इतना strong है. In the sort of the more experienced CV, you need to have a very strong professional summary that adequately highlight कि आप कितने senior हो, right? Award-winning XYZ with more than 7+ years of work experience, with direct work experience in ABC, recognized in the industry for ABC, awarded the best manager of the year award in 2024. ऐसा strong summary चाहिए हमें. And then the work experience is the heart of it. Work experience में 5 bullet points हैं, which you must follow. First, each of your work experience, अगर आपका 7-8 साल से पीछे वाला work experience है, उसमें आप सिर्फ एक दो bullet point रखोगे क्योंकि जगह नहीं है आपके पास, right? First, number of bullet points, right? Each work experience should not have more than 4, minimum 3 to 5 bullet points. Like 3 to 5 is the range that we see recruiters.
And with this is we are talking about experience.
Yes. So experience में between 3 to 5 bullet point is optimal because the recruiter has a level of retention. 5 bullet points ज़्यादा होता है, overwhelming लगता है virtual value के हिसाब से. So first is 5 bullet points. Second, usage of action verbs, right? In an expert CV, you need to use impactful action verbs, things like institutionalized, championed, managed, and these impactful action verbs. That's the second. Third, you must have a very clear structure to your work experience, जो हमने पहले डिस्कस किया, what, how and result. Fourth,
वो सेम रहेगा.
सही, वो achievement oriented. Fourth point is every bullet point आप what, how and result बताओगे, it should not be more than 1.5 lines. That's the key, right? So we've discussed 4 points. First, not more than 3 to 5 bullet points. Second, action verbs. Third, numbers. Fourth, you must have a clear structure. And fifth is basically you cannot go more than 1.5 line per bullet point,
So,
right? So that's how you draft a very strong work experience, and make sure to add technical skills in your work experience, because if you're a technical person, your technical skills are the most
paramount,
important thing. Yeah.
ओके सुपर. एक जो सबसे बड़ा डर एक्सपर्ट लेवल के लोगों को लगा रहता है, और स्पेशली रिसेंट दिनों में, AI will take over my job.
Hmm.
How realistic is that?
Yeah, I mean, the research suggests that a lot of jobs are at the risk of being replaced, but not anytime soon, right? So that's one consideration. You have a time frame to learn, upscale, rescale, change industry, do whatever. So there is a time frame around it, right? So it's not like कि आज ChatGPT आ गया, कल job चली गई, right? So that's one. Two, you may lose your job, it's a big may, but if you know how to use AI, there are new jobs. So AI will replace jobs. It will not take jobs away. So and that's a key consideration. Second, time है. दूसरा, आपकी जॉब जाएगी तो एक नई जॉब आएगी. The question is, are you ready to upskill to that level where you can get
So
and do the new job?
I have my own theory on this. So my saying has been, a recent understanding of this is, कि I don't think AI will take your job, but the person who knows how to use AI
Exactly.
will take your job.
Yeah,
I think that's my way
exactly.
of thinking.
And the same, because you'll not be replaced. Another person who knows how to do it will replace you. So 100% agree to that. Yeah.
So yes. So now, what are the key things that people in their current roles, expert roles, what should they be doing to upskill themselves, to prepare themselves for that? क्या करना चाहिए?
So if you want to come to the UK, first you need to figure out if your industry is sort of accepting and inviting for external talent, right? For instance, if you're in HR, right, there are enough HR professionals in the UK who are doing their job. So most likely, for a lot of my candidates who apply for like HR jobs from India, they get rejected unless they're super senior, and that is quite natural because it's supply demand, right? At the end of the day. So if there is enough adequate national supply, why would someone hire from outside,
उसके
right?
लिए एक सबसे बेसिक रीज़न है कि यहाँ पे जिस किसी का ए लेवल्स में कम मार्क्स आए थे वो सबने HR किया था और मार्केटिंग किया था.
Don't
So
know.
I think I'm being honest. This is, when I was studying, this was the most common thing we've seen.
Well, I kind of disagree. I think HR and marketing are really technical fields as well. But yeah, I mean, there are all these sort of notions here as well. I mean, I would not disagree that notion exists. 100%. People have that notion. If it's right or wrong, it's probably wrong. So yeah, it's a tricky space to comment upon. Is what I would say.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, going back to AI. Yes. So what can people do to prepare themselves?
First is, I think a lot of these sort of large language models need good knowledge of how prompts work, and I think that's the first thing. There are like a lot of courses now available, which basically tell you how to write a good prompt. There is in fact a ChatGPT 4.0 course which I was just looking at very recently, and it tells you how the body of a prompt needs to be formulated for it to be optimal for ChatGPT 4.0. Now it's these things that, it's not like you will go for a formal education and then upskill. It's like these small things. First, follow some right places which give out this information. Second, make a conscious effort to go out and seek this information, in the sense of what are the recent trends, what are some new things happening, and maybe if you really want to, this is the third big thing, and this worked really well for me. So I took a ChatGPT Plus subscription that unlocked multiple cool features that I had no idea even existed. For instance, voice-enabled GPT, right? Second, project section in the ChatGPT column that didn't exist. Building custom GPTs is only in the sort of the professional one. When I unlocked these three features, I have, and now over 500 plus people are using my ChatGPT, sort of the custom GPT every day. Now these things did not exist. I would never know about them if I wouldn't get the Plus membership. I'm not advocating like buy it, but it's just like sort of £10, but it unlocks an entirely different world. So stay up to date, follow the right places, make a conscious effort, and if you have some spare resources, invest in it so that you can see what else is out there and experiment and learn with it. So it's a lot of it is experiential learning as well, is what I would say.
So I mean, from my personal experience, I mean, I do a lot of project work.
Yeah.
And my last role, I think, by using AI, I had reduced my manual work by up to 50%.
Absolutely.
आई मीन जो काम मुझे 7 घंटे लग रहे थे दिन में करने में, वो मैं 3 घंटे में कर रहा था. सो आई थिंक देर इज रूम आउट देर इज अ लॉट ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी आउट देयर फॉर दिस, और
Absolutely.
ये सिर्फ बढ़ेगा, कम नहीं होगा.
100%. In fact, we hosted an AI masterclass attended by like hundreds of people. And best traction we've seen ever in one of our webinars is the AI masterclass. And that AI masterclass at this point in time has 5x the speed that people used to apply for jobs. So अगर आप 10 मिनट लेते थे एक एप्लीकेशन के लिए, आज के टाइम में आप वो सेम AI masterclass और हमारे GPTs यूज करके सिर्फ 2 मिनट ले रहे हो. And it's brilliant because now people are able to, in the same 10-minute time, able to apply to 5 jobs instead of one. And that increases your chances if your conversion rate is whatever.
एब्सोल्युटली. ओके, तो अब आते हैं एप्लीकेशंस के ऊपर कि what are the primary platforms for searching and for looking for expert roles. I mean, I'm of the opinion that this should be done, most of it is done headhunted, is like you are found through a recruiter, you get approached. Most of those senior roles go out that way, or they go out by you personally having contacted through LinkedIn and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Not so much through job boards. But is your opinions other than mine?
There are two ways in which this thing is not in your control. There are like a couple of things. So there are like multiple things, right? So the first one where we see the highest pathway into, going into high skill roles in the UK is you get an internal company transfer. Say you're working for Meta. Meta realizes you'll be better suited in the London office, they transfer you, right? So one, see if your company has a UK office and see if you can internally transfer. That's one. That's sort of not in a job hunter's hand, right? Second is you getting headhunted, which you rightly mentioned. A lot of recruitment agencies looking for specialist roles and they're targeting, sort of immigrant candidates because of skill shortages, right? These are two which are not really proactively in your hand. This may happen to you. There are ways of making this happen, like you can optimize your LinkedIn and work a certain way in your company. That's a longer conversation, but these are two sort of external bits, right? Now, definitely proactively applying has yielded results for us, but only in technical fields. So a lot of my folks have used LinkedIn and again Google Jobs to directly apply, and they apply to, and their strategy is volume heavy. So they apply to a lot of jobs, and they take help from their family, friends, and like they're applying for jobs in mass. But then they get good results, is what we've seen. That's one. Second, a lot of these people actually get jobs from something called as loose ties, and LinkedIn data suggests that a lot of offers are made based on your loose ties. Now, what are loose ties? Say I met someone like 5 years ago in a coffee chat, now they're in London. So I reach out to them and then, the conversation begins from that. So how do you do your loose ties properly? Is you first sit down and brainstorm who are your loose ties that are probably in the UK or probably working in companies which are like global. Make a list of all the loose ties, send a hyper personal message to them. And we've got a template for that. I'm happy to share that with you. Schedule a coffee chat for 15 minutes. Do not be desperate because you're seniors. You don't want to come across as desperate. Do that coffee chat. Do a heart-to-heart with them, and that'll automatically convert. So focusing on loose ties is something that a lot of these experienced people do. And yeah, so job boards definitely work, and sort of the loose tie cold emailing approach also works.
So this notion that everyone knows, especially I have always had, and I've found people who are at senior level. Now we're talking 100K plus. ठीक है? कि 80% of those jobs are not even advertised. You either get a role because you know someone, somebody knows of your work, word of mouth, headhunting. So is that true?
Well, 100% sort of ghost jobs exist. Everyone knows about it. It's widely discussed. Lots of them exist. One of our club members applied to 400 jobs, went to 7 rounds of interviews. All 7 of them, in the last round, they didn't reject him. They said the job is no more there. And so he was like, Vardaan, I'm done. मेरे को नहीं करना यार, मैं जा रहा हूँ. He cried on the call with me. I was so pissed. So a lot of the recruiter friends, and I wrote a very strongly worded LinkedIn post on this. Sometimes they do it for like researching the market. Sometimes they do it to show that, the company is in a healthy state and they're hiring, they're expanding. So recruitment को काफी बार ऐसे एक tool, marketing tool की तरह use किया जाता है to showcase competitors that we are doing really well. But there is a big problem with that because candidates just like me, this guy I'm telling you 7 interviews, बंदे ने नया सूट खरीदा अपने फ्रेंड से लोन लेके, बंदा ट्रेन लेके गया ऑल द वे ससेक्स वहाँ पे
Wow.
इंटरव्यू करने. He lost bloody so much money in that and he was broken. So yes, ghost jobs exist. Yes, people do that and it's a bad practice. What's the way around it? You backlink your applications and you speak to the right people when you get the time and you do the
So
hyper post
I think there is
accordingly.
also another reason for this. So they're not so much ghost jobs. A lot of the times people hire temporary staff, then advertise the permanent roles, and then end up hiring the temporary staff. And जो बाहर से लोग आते हैं इंटरव्यू करने के लिए वो खाली इन माय लाइक उर्दू में हम कहते हैं एक लफ्ज़ यूज़ करते हैं खाना पूरी.
Ah,
इट्स लाइक फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स कि
Yeah.
वो कंप्लीट करके.
True.
So I think that's also can be one of the reasons why this
100%,
happens.
100%, and that's why I tell my senior candidates, because as a senior you can ask this question, is you should ask when they say, do you have any questions for us? You should say, I would love to know if the organization is considering internal candidates for this role. If they say a yes, then depending on how the room is, you must ask the question in terms of, all right, what do you think an internal candidate is going to bring to the position that an external candidate wouldn't, right? Again, depending on their answer, you can probe a little bit further to understand कि आपका time waste कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे. I've done an entire article and reel on this. I'd be happy to share that as well. So yeah, as an experienced candidate, your time is valuable and you must showcase that in your interview. And so asking these questions in your interview not only showcases proactiveness, it also showcases that you're a senior person. So ऐसे questions पूछने चाहिए. At a senior level, the company is not interviewing you, you're also interviewing the company. And once you have that attitude, it showcases, even in your confidence.
And also, I think this is very important. The company is not only interviewing you; you are interviewing the company. The main point I was going to make here was, there's nothing worse than making a career move and ending up at a bad company, at a bad organization. And I've made that mistake. I'm sure there are loads of people out
Everyone
there
made that
who've
mistake.
made that mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, so going into that, so now your CV, you've updated your CV, आपको इंटरव्यू कॉल आ गई, आप इंटरव्यू में पहुंच गए. नाउ कम्स द टाइम कि आपको ऑफर आती है, ठीक है. नाउ हाउ should you go about, I mean, how important is negotiating at this time? I mean, I feel I've always asked for more, ठीक है.
Yes.
Personally, I've always asked for more. Especially if you're being headhunted, then you have an
100%.
open door.
Yeah.
लेकिन अगर आप इस तरीके से आते हैं, how open are companies to negotiating on salary packages, on other increments, so on and so forth?
Most companies will lowball the first offer.
अच्छा.
I've seen that through and through. Most companies will lowball the first offer. I'll give you an example, not of an experience, because experience mein karna it's easy. Undergraduate, fresh girl from English literature from KCL comes in, right?
अच्छा.
Gets a PR job at an investment banking firm. Really good. Gets an initial salary of 20,000. But 20,000 minimum wage bhi nahi, मुश्किल से cut. I said negotiate. Negotiates first round, gets to 25. Negotiates again,
अच्छा.
gets to 30. This is almost a 50% increase in the salary. Companies lowball and negotiation is a must in this job market. How you do it is the
key,
big thing. Because if I also have people who've got a 100K offer, they have negotiated and they got their offer rescinded. So there are both ways to it.
तो इसमें एक और चीज़ भी है ना, जो डर स्पेशली जो ग्रेजुएट्स, फ्रेश ग्रेजुएट्स हैं, जो या जिनको ने पहले कभी नहीं किया, उनको डर ये लगता है यार पैसे ज़्यादा मांगे तो काम ज़्यादा करना पड़ेगा. Is that one of the things as well?
उनको ज़्यादा डर ये लगता है कि पैसे ज़्यादा मांगे तो ऑफर ही ना चले जाएगा. That is their like ऑफर ना चले जाए यार, नौकरी ले लेता हूँ और फिर लो बॉल हो जाते हैं. मेरे साथ भी हुआ, सबके साथ हुआ है. Like my first job was 150 pounds. इंडिया में 15,000 की मेरी जॉब थी. मतलब ठीक है भाई, मिल रही है ना, 15 मस्ती करूँ. But now that I see 15,000, I was like worth way more than that. So 100% that's a problem. And if you're scared of negotiating, there's a way of negotiating. The first thing that you want to understand about negotiating salary is that you do not do salary negotiation or salary numbers before you get the offer in hand, right? Because salary across all industries is a qualifying metric to a candidate. So अगर आप salary में ऊपर नीचे हो तो आप reject हो सकते हो. That's a qualifying metric. So we don't want to mess that up, right? So salary negotiation, as a rule of thumb, will never happen before the offer is given to you, right? Unless the recruiter asks you about it, right? Second, once you've gotten the offer, ideally, we don't do salary negotiation over email, and most people don't prefer to write things down, and they ask the recruiter for a call. In that call or in that email, if you choose to write it, you need to make two things really clear, right? One, that you want a better offer based off of industry standards or based off of another company. Want to make clear that, I know you're lowballing. Second thing you want to make clear is you want to tell the company that you are still my highest priority so that they don't revoke the offer. So you want to say something like this, right? As per companies, as per industry standards and another offer that I have, this is what I was expecting. However, ABC remains my top priority employer, and regardless of the salary, I would love to join the company. However, if there is any room for negotiation, I would be very happy to join my favorite company or the company I love on a package that I love, which will help me perform at my optimal level. You can always say that, but you want to make sure that you tell them I know you're lowballing, and two, that even if you don't increase it, I'm fine with it because you are my priority, not and because
So
I'm
you don't
over money.
lose the role, yeah.
Exactly. So you want to tell them that you see beyond money, and that's why it's kind of want to doing them a favor, sort of a thing.
Okay, now a couple of questions. Something that we've already discussed about uh, landing a job in UK, getting sponsored by a company in UK. Now, very briefly, I want to touch upon it कि जो एक्सपर्ट लेवल की जॉब्स हैं उनके लिए इस चीज़ में कितना रूम है, किस किस्म की इंडस्ट्रीज़ में वो अप्लाई कर सकते हैं और उनके चांसेस एज कम्पेयर टू अ यूके एप्लीकेंट कैसे होंगे?
Again, some really good industries you would find on the immigration salary list. Outside of that, what we have seen is
Sorry, we'll just explain what the immigration salary list is, please.
Yeah.
So for the viewers, so they know exactly what they.
So immigration salary list is the UK government's list, which highlights what are some critical occupations which are in shortage in the country. So, for instance, archaeologists, project controls, and occupations like those. So it's a list of all the occupations that are in shortage, and so it's good for external people to apply for those roles. And those industries are quite friendly to sort of external people applying for those roles. They also have some visa privileges in terms of low salary requirements than other occupations.
और उनके बेस या सैलरी या एक वो उसमें होती लिखी होती है.
हाँ, so अगर आपका ऑक्यूपेशन इमिग्रेशन सैलरी लिस्ट में है तो जो उस ऑक्यूपेशन का गोइंग रेट है उसका 80% भी अगर आपको ऑफर मिलता है तो भी आपको वीज़ा मिल सकता है.
अच्छा,
So
okay.
so I can give an example if you want.
Please.
So अगर आप एक सपोज पॉलिसी मैनेजर है मेरी तरह और आपका गोइंग रेट मार्केट रेट जो है इस जॉब का वो है 50,000 पाउंड्स, राइट? पर क्योंकि मेरी ऑक्यूपेशन सैलरी लिस्ट में है, अगर मेरे को ऑफर मिलता है 46,000 का which is less than the going rate, I can still be eligible for the visa.
अच्छा.
In usual cases that will not happen.
Okay.
Like अगर ISL में नहीं है तो मेरे को गोइंग रेट से ज़्यादा या गोइंग रेट तक मिनिमम चाहिए वीज़ा लेने के लिए.
Okay, so moving on. Now you've got your sponsorship, you've landed your role. आपका ये यहाँ से आपका सारा मामला जम गया, सेट हो गया. Okay. Now going to the next stage कि now comes to the point of relocation. और कल्चरल शॉक बहुत लोगों को लगता है, ये चीज़ें होती हैं. Now how costly, I mean on average what should a person be expecting when they're moving over? क्योंकि day one से तो उनको तनख्वाह नहीं मिलने वाली ना,
नहीं मिलने वाली.
ठीक है, उनको महीने के बाद so what should they have in preparation for this?
First, if you are an experienced professional who's really valuable, you should always ask for relocation package from your company. Most people don't do that. They're like, अरे जॉब मिल रही है, जॉब ही ले लेते हैं, खुद देख लेंगे. Or if you are experienced, don't push them because that may mean that the offer is revoked.
But that does exist.
100% exists. So companies provide relocation support to high-skilled employers, even like sometimes to like middle-level professionals. So always seek that option out because you will save thousands of pounds if you ask for relocation support, right? That's one. Say the company's like, no, we're not going to do that. Then depends if you have got dependents, if you're coming with your family or not. But I think roughly, I mean, giving a number is quite difficult, to be honest. Like, but I mean, it's different for every people.
And especially it depends on where you're moving. I mean, that was if you're coming to London, you're coming to Manchester. It depends.
Really. I mean, let's look at it, right? London average rent would be like between 1,000 to 1,300 pounds every month. Bare minimum, you will spend 500 to 700 on living expenses. that's roughly 1800 to 2100 pounds
और ये
that
मेरे
you
ख्याल में आप
need.
सबसे कम एंड का बता रहे हैं.
हाँ, मतलब come to average
हाँ.
at that range. So 2100 pounds you need in save for every month
हम्म.
to get started with your relocation, including rent. उसके बाद आप वीज़ा अलग लगाओ, आप शुरू में अपना सारा करोगे. So that's per month cost. So if you're taking an average of 2100 to 2500 is what I would say you would need per month.
So I think
Baseline.
what I would suggest to the viewers or whoever is interested in this is do their investigation, look at which areas are good, which areas
Yeah.
are bad, what are the rents, what are the living cost,
Mm.
per person living cost, और ये सारा data आपको online मिल जाता है.
Yeah.
Have all of that prepared before you're traveling,
Yeah.
before you're making your mind up for that. Okay, so let's talk about the process of application. How do you get the sponsorship visas? What are the do's and don'ts of that? उसके लिए क्या ज़रूरत है चीज़ें, और क्या support available है उसके लिए?
Absolutely. So, I mean, so first thing, if you're looking for a sponsored job and you do not have current right to work in the UK, you need the skilled worker route, right? The first good resource to refer is the list of licensed sponsors.
अच्छा.
And that's available on the gov.uk website. It's a list of hundreds of companies who have the license to sponsor skilled worker visas.
अच्छा.
Any company that does not show in that register will most likely not be able to sponsor you, so no point wasting time with them,
ठीक
right?
है.
Unless they choose to get a skilled worker visa license only for you, which has happened to some of my clients, but that's a long shot, right? So the first resource is check that out. Second, often for my clients, it's very difficult to like look at the company, then look for job on LinkedIn and then cross refer. So there are some really good visa sponsorship extensions that you can download on your Google Chrome browser. What they will do is when you're on LinkedIn, they will tell you exact job which may be able to offer you visa sponsorship.
अच्छा.
So we have those extensions in our community, and we'll be happy to share again.
Okay,
Just
super.
for reference, I think that's a really good tool because people can just scroll and see, okay, this sponsors, this doesn't sponsor. So for people who are outside, that's a very good resource.
Okay, and talking about sponsorship visa, there is always a cost involved.
Yeah.
Who usually bears the cost?
So that's interesting because previously there was a provision where people could just like strike a deal with your employer and you could basically like pay some part of it. But I think now the rules have changed. I'm not
Acha.
sure, so you cannot do that anymore.
Okay.
So the entire cost of your visa sponsorship must be borne by the employer. Is what I think is the rule. That's worth double checking.
So I think that's true. And if anybody is asking you for anything other than that, don't go with them.
100%. Yeah, that's most likely a scam. So yeah. So in terms of cost of visa sponsorship, entirely borne by the employer. Cost of relocation, maybe by the employer and most likely by you. So yeah.
Okay. Now, one more linked question to this, and then I'll move slightly away from it. Linked question is London the only place where people can get sponsored jobs, or there are other cities, or there are other options? I
Yeah.
mean, that's something that we need to clarify, that there are other cheaper options out there. So, what, in your view, in your experience, which are the top three cities? I don't think London is the highest either.
100%. I've written like another short article about this, and the article basically argues that if you're looking for a skilled worker job, your highest chance is not in London, but it's in places where people don't apply for jobs. So, for instance, I would not give you top three. In fact, as a candidate, I would look for the sort of the bottom three cities or locations where people are not working. So, a lot of my clients have gotten skilled worker visas for jobs in Cumbria.
Acha.
It's like sort of kind of middle of nowhere. So it's sort of not a lot of people want to commute there. So these people are like, what, I want a skilled worker visa. I don't care where I'm living, so I'll go for it. So Leeds, Manchester, again, these are sort of recognized cities and big tier cities. But again, very good to look at, from that perspective. Just move out of London and look for places where you might think that the application in sort of footfall will be low. That's the place which will most likely sponsor you because no one's applying there.
And also, I think I would like to add the other thing in it is the cost of living in those areas will be much cheaper,
lower.
much cheaper
Yeah.
than London. And अगर आप experienced or expert level पे आ रहे हैं, it is highly likely that you have a family, you have kids. So also good to look at the areas where there are good schools for your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing that you should be looking at before you are considering
Yeah.
relocation?
And in fact, I did this one reel that had quite some traction, which was the best way of mapping this job hunt out is by looking at local councils.
Hmm.
So UK has about 300 plus local councils. Over 150 of them have the license to sponsor. So
Acha.
if you want to look at where to sort of look for those jobs, check out the local councils and see, all right, this is a local council I've never heard of. So, and then check if they have a visa sponsorship license. Apply to the local council and apply to any companies that are around that local council. So
Acha.
that's a very good way of mapping geographically how you can maximize your chances of getting a skilled worker visa through a good geographical mapping and analysis.
ओके वाओ एक सवाल मेरे जहन में आ रहा है कि अभी हमने जैसा कहा कि इफ़ यू आर एन एक्सपर्ट तो आपकी फैमिली होगी मोस्ट लाइकली you're in not in your young ages.
Yeah.
तो
Not like you and me.
well so
Young
let's,
like you and me.
yeah, I wish we could say that. I could say that. I'm sure you can. So let's go. So age, how big of a factor is age when you're applying? So I mean, as an employer, if I would look at somebody और कोई किसी के लिए मुझे visa application process करना पड़ा और सब कुछ, I would definitely look at कि how long can I retain this person for?
100%.
क्योंकि मैं एक investment कर रहा हूँ. This is an investment.
Yeah.
So is that really a factor?
Absolutely, it's a factor. It's one of those unfortunate biases that are still in the recruitment industry. Lots of them are there. Ageism is there. Clear sexism is there. There are ethnic biases. So if they see like non-UK work experience in your CV, they'll be like, oh, most of the work experience not from the UK, so let me reject. If they see that you're over a certain age, they will reject. There are these biases. We have seen them because the moment we remove these biases from a CV, the conversion rate goes up, right? So they are definitely there from what we have seen. There's something that you absolutely should not mention in your CV, right? For instance, your graduation date. If you are on the verge of being a victim to ageism, just don't mention that. Who's asking you to mention your graduation date? Who's asking you to mention your date of birth? Just don't mention these things on your CV because the point of the CV is to remove the bad bias. Bad bias is stuff like, if you've got non-UK experience, if you're like over a certain age, if you've got experiences in an industry which is looked down on, these are bad biases, remove them. Add the good bias. You've got a UK masters, add that. You've got, UK client work experience, add that. So we want to remove the bad bias. We want to add the good bias. Ageism makes a very critical part of it. Don't mention it. Just blind it. In fact, if you apply to sort of any government job in the UK, so if you apply for a civil service job, which people from the Commonwealth countries can apply, most people don't know that. If you apply for those jobs, the UK government will ask you, and the civil service job portal will ask you to blind your CV. Don't give me your name. Don't give me your school. Don't give me your location. Don't give me your age. I don't want anything. Why? So that the recruitment process in the government can be free of biases.
Oh, wow.
And that is a brilliant thing. And most people should do that. They should learn from that and use it in the corporate and private sector as well.
So this is amazing information. I mean, something I didn't know. I'm sure a lot of our viewers wouldn't know. Okay, so moving on from ageism, let's move on to another. I wouldn't say it's a taboo, but I think it's something that a lot of people do not like to talk about. Is especially in our Asian countries is disabilities. People with disabilities, and disability is not just physical. It could be loads of different things जो हम लोग शायद समझते भी नहीं है और हमें पहले नहीं बताया गया था. यहाँ पे वेस्टर्न सोसाइटीज़ में आके हमने इन चीज़ों को एक्सपीरियंस किया और देखा है. तो how much impact or effect does that make? I know of a lot of companies when you're applying for roles, they'll ask you if you're registered disabled or if you know of any disabilities that you may have. So, or the other common question is, do you consider yourself disabled?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of these organizations will give you support in interviews, in tests and so on. So let's talk about a bit about that. कि ये कितना common है, कितनी ऐसी organizations यानी गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस तो डेफिनेटली करती हैं, पर क्या सपोर्ट्स अवेलेबल है, क्या चीज़ें अवेलेबल हैं ऐसे लोगों के लिए?
I think it's a very, very important topic. How do we create an inclusive recruitment industry for anyone who's specially abled? We do a lot of work in it. And inclusivity starts right from the first letter you write in your CV, what font you're using, and how you're communicating. Because it's not always the fact that, someone who's applying for a job may be on this spectrum. There may be, recruiters who may have, say, learning disabilities, so they're not able to read a certain font. So as a job seeker, you must have your CV in an accessible format, something that is accessible and generally accepted. So for instance, Vardaan is a font that is generally accepted in terms of being one of the most accessible fonts. So try to stick to, like, those kind of best practices to make, even if you have nothing to do with specially able schemes and anything, that as a sort of person who's looking for a job, I think it's important to value the accessibility and inclusivity aspect of the entire recruitment process. So make sure that you're doing your bit is the first thing. The second thing is, definitely there are a lot of, in the UK, I think this industry is much more evolved, in the sense that there are a lot of ways and means that employers would go to a certain length to help you make sure that you're able to, like, give your best foot forward and operate to your potential. So there's the disability confident employers, and there's an entire register list of all the employers who have that scheme and run that scheme. And that scheme, as you very rightly mentioned, allows you to sometimes directly interview, have special arrangements for your interview. Sometimes you get some extra questions before the interviews that you can prepare. And so the first thing is, be aware of that. Second thing is, as a job seeker, play your part. The third thing is, ask for it.
Be open.
Yeah, ask for it and be open. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't know why I don't want to do it. And as you said, some people think of it like, I'm better off not saying it. Ask for it. It's good to ask for that support, and I think I'm all in. I encourage my candidates to do that, and they do get a lot of help and support, and then they're able to really smash those interviews. I mean, and they do a great job.
It's not only the interviews, it's after the interview. आपको equipment किस तरह की चाहिए? कुछ लोग हैं उनको special keyboards चाहिए होते हैं, special mouse.
Yeah.
I mean, I am on my height is higher, तो मुझे हमेशा higher table मिलता है. वो extended लगा के, and so on and so on. There are multiple things that employers would do for you. There's a lot of support that you can get, and also there is a scheme. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's for disabled people. I'm sure people can check it out. कि आपको special equipment मिल सकता है government से. Whether it's laptops, whether it's other things. So anything that may help you in completing your job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, those are the key bits, right? You need to be aware and you need to make an effort to, like, ask. And I think it's also very important, like, representation. I think it's also, like, positionality, like, we've never been through that process. I mean, I've never been through that process. So there is a limited amount that I can say and convey, but I think it's also important to, really represent people who identify, with any disability or special ability, to really bring them in the forefront and talk to them about their experiences. I think there's a lot to learn from lived experiences, which you and I, quite frankly, will never be able to understand.
Absolutely. So I think this was it for our podcast for today. Any final advice, any takeaways, any key points from you?
Just one thing. I think job hunting is hard. We've spoken in detail about it previously.
Actually, sorry, I think I do have one more question.
Go for it.
So the question would be, despite everything we've spoken about, are there still opportunities in UK?
Yes.
Short, simple answer, yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, fire away.
Most people may disagree with that, but personally, 100% yes.
Okay.
There are opportunities. I think this country has a lot to offer. If you want, I will go on a personal story with this. I come from India. I want to work in the parliament. Like, I do policy and public affairs in my full-time job, which we've not spoken about. But I think it's brilliant. Commendation to my employer as well from that side of things. I wanted to do policy and public affairs. I was stuck up. मेरे को government में ही काम करना है. मेरे को ये मजा आता है करना, right? So, and I was like, everyone told me, how are you going to go to the UK? Who do you think you are? Go and work in their parliament and talk to members of parliament there. As a brown person, that never happens. No one gets that job. I was like, great, okay, if you're saying that, great, but I will do my best. And because I knew job hunting as a skill, I put all of that in place, applied for that job, got that job. Now I go to the parliament and I do my job. And I think it is a testimony to this country's inclusivity that they're happy with the brown person coming in the parliament and essentially allowing him to give opinions on how to run the country. I think that's the biggest opportunity any country could host for an
Absolutely.
migrant.
I mean, if you know how to work, if you know your role, if you're competent, you will get there.
If I, as a brown person, can work in their parliament, I am certain that there are opportunities in this country for anyone who's coming from abroad. And that's, I think, what sets the United Kingdom apart from any other place. The inclusivity and diversity in London and the UK is exceptional, and I really value it.
Absolutely. Okay. So, anything you would like to add to that from your point of view? For the viewers, I would say कि जितने लिंक्स के बारे में हमने बात की, लिस्ट के बारे में हमने बात की, आपके पास जो सपोर्ट मैकेनिज़म्स हैं, उन सब के लिंक्स डिस्क्रिप्शन में हम ऐड करेंगे. इसके अलावा अगर आप कुछ ऐड करना चाहें तो प्लीज़ फील फ्री टू डू सो.
I think job hunting is a lonely process. It is lonely, it is tiring, it is agonizing, and it is difficult. And a lot of people do it in silos. What we're doing is, yes, we're landing you a job in 90 days. And if we don't do that, we offer people free membership of our club. So if you work with us for 90 days and you still don't get a job, you are allowed to stay and work with us in our club for free till you get a job. Yeah, so one of the things that I would 100% recommend is, it's an agonizing process, it's difficult, it's tiring, it's all of those things, but you need, and if you realize it's not working, ask for help. Text me, text anyone, ask for help. Even if you don't want to pay, ask for help. We're here. And that can sometimes just change the game altogether.
Absolutely.
I think one last thing that I would definitely mention about the Social Untold team is that you've done an exceptional research. You've brought about points which are important to be talked about, which often aren't mentioned in the industry. And I personally really value that. I know the thousands of people who follow us and who've placed their trust in us will absolutely value this initiative that you've done. So hats off to the research, hats off to the team, hats off to all the arrangement, hats off to the outreach. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So you see, our aim has always been कि हम ऐसी information लेकर आए जो कि direct source से हो, credible हो, और ऐसी information हो जो लोगों के लिए ज़रूरी हो. अगर आप लोग ऐसी ही वीडियोस देखना चाहते हैं, प्लीज़ हमें कमेंट बताइए, और किसी टॉपिक पे आप चाहते हैं कि हम वीडियोस बनाएं, प्लीज़ बताइए. हमारी आज की वीडियो आपको कैसी लगी, हमें ये भी ज़रूर बताइएगा. लाइक कीजिए, सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, शेयर कीजिए, और ऑफ कोर्स UKGI के इंस्टाग्राम पेज को फॉलो करें.
Yes.
थैंक यू वेरी मच गाइस.